How's it going, YouTube? Today we're doing another top 10 best decks video, this time for DZ-BT08 Knights Reborn. Is that what it's called? Knights of Rebirth. See, I was close. So we're going to be doing essentially is kind of like a Knights of Rebirth tier list, but I'm just kind of talk about at least the top 10 decks, in my opinion, for the meta after the set releases. So with that out of the way, we're just going to go ahead and start off with number 10. So kicking things off at number 10, I would say the 10th best deck in the Vanguard standard meta is Kairi. So Kairi got some sweet new support, especially the new Kairi that came out in this set. It's a new grade 3. It has the ability where anything placed by card effects or placed from hand get an additional 5k, which is really nice. So more power for all the bouncing you're going to do. When it attacks, you just bounce a column back to your hand. Then you can counterblast to bring 2 things back. And then if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, you get an extra drive check. So all that to say, extra drives is huge in my opinion, because that's more chance to see not just crits, but your OT. Multi-attacking is really nice. Plus there's support cards that restand themselves for multi-attacking. It goes super well with typical lyrical support cards like Francette and Prism, Pearl, and Twinkle Powder, which was a card from last set, just giving your rear guards boost so that you can just call a bunch of grade 2s and have them boost each other, which is really cool. But other than that, I do really think Kairi can push for a lot of aggression, especially when you Persona Ride. I just do think that maybe the deck can falter with a little bit of the consistency of finding the pieces you need for the deck to function. In my opinion, you're going to need the grade 1 that's going to search out Prism Pearl just so that you can have it ready to go immediately. There's a guy at my locals who was playing Kairi against me in locals in a tournament. He was playing with Yuikas, and he was even saying like, I think I'm going to cut the Yuikas. So that all to say, I think Kairi is really good, but it does lack in a little bit of some consistency issues. But the deck, other than that, the deck is still phenomenally good. Huge buff to Kairi this set. So if you are interested in building a lyrical deck, I definitely think Kairi is one of the best decks to play in the format right now. So next up for number 9, we have Shiranui. So Shiranui somehow crawled its way back into the meta, even though it's at number 9 on my list. I still think Shiranui has had some decent performance, at least in Japan, even with the restrictions with like Furai and Drag Veda, obviously. So with that said, there's a new grade 1 that came out in this set, Drag Ritter Nilmina. What it does is you're able to look at the top 5, grab a grade 3 or greater card, add it to your hand. If you didn't add anything, countercharge, I believe. And then if you retired or bound any of your opponent's rear guards, it gets 5k. So obviously Dominate triggers that after something attacks, and then if you kill another rear guard, that's retiring. Or if you use your Vanguard skill to retire at the end of the battle that it's dominated, that's a retire effect. But also just being able to look at the top 5 or top 7. I think it's top 7 actually. You have to look at the top 7, grab a grade 3 or greater, so you can grab your Shiranuis or Stride Fodder. You can grab Esperiatas for restands. Those are really good. So a helpful searcher. The other thing that's really helpful, that's at least helped Shiranui kind of get itself back on the map, is the new grade 3 Regalis piece that came in the Michiru deck set, which is Shroud in Darkness. So Shroud in Darkness can be played for free if you meet a certain condition, but it's only Counterblast 1, it's nothing crazy. But what you do is you choose 2 normal units that are not Sentinels with different card names, and they can have the sum equal up to your Vanguard's grade, and you can call them in the rear. So you're able to bring back your Furai, which is limited to 1. You can bring back another restanding grade 2, or you can just bring back 1 card. You can bring back an Esperiata, that's a grade 4, and then Shroud in Darkness can put itself to soul if you only picked 1 card, so it fills your soul. So these are all things that really help Shiranui perform and keep up and recycle cards that get retired. So it's kind of like people looked at Shroud in Darkness and they were like, oh wait, this makes Shiranui like good, or I can play Shiranui again. So that's why I think Shiranui can have some potential. So if you are a big Shiranui player and you're really excited for the deck and you got really hurt by the nerfs, you'll be able to make your comeback with Shroud of Darkness and obviously Drag Ritter No Mean for the deck. So that's pretty much it for number 9. It's going to go to Shiranui. Number 8, I put Ava. So I do think Ava is still a really, really good deck. I think for the last video I did, I put her at like number 6. There's just a lot better decks right now, in my opinion, but I do think Ava is still in the top 10. So what I love about Ava, if you don't already know, is the toolboxiness of it. Just being able to search for cards, pulling out the order cards immediately during the ride line, using Immergar to search out your Poison Ava and Persona Ride consistently every single turn. Super nice. Poison Ava also being able to grab a research as you Persona Ride, and also just up Skidai being really aggressive, just calling up Skidais from the decks. They get a crit, pressuring your opponent. You also have the order, which protects your Upsi guides from being retired, which has a really decent matchup against Babzora, realistically. So that's, in my opinion, why I like Ava so much too, is that if you do play against Babs, you can at least know your Upsi guides are protected, so you can intercept with them. But Ava didn't really get any new support. They did get the generic stuff from Set 7 that every nation got for like the Persona tickets. It is really helpful in the Ava deck because who doesn't love more defensive cards? And, you know, Ava's got a good mix of offense and defense. So that being said, I do think there are a lot more aggressive decks that Ava might have some trouble keeping up with. So I decided to put Ava at number 8. So for number 7, this one was a really interesting choice for me. I decided to put Varga as number 7. The reason for this is because I feel like Varga gets like these waves of like, this deck is bad. Oh, this deck is great. It won an event. Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's great. But then the deck doesn't really change. So what's the issue? So I think it really comes down to the skill, right? So if you're not winning with Varga, skill issue. So that being said, I do think that Varga is one of those decks where, you know, it really comes down to how it's piloted, because it's a very, very aggressive deck and it does pay a lot of attention to the timing. So with Varga Rakshasa being the card that it is, it retires both players' front rows and then it retires the back row to restand with drive -2. The divine skill allows it to restand again with 2 drive checks. So a well-timed divine skill obviously means you're going to be pushing really aggressively at a certain point, especially when you Persona Ride. There's also tons of different ways to play Varga. You could either play like the traditional, like, you know, I'm going to run, you know, my 4 Fall Hearts and my 3 Boulder Axe and my 4, what's her name? The card that calls itself from the drop zone. Just playing those. There's also people that are running Fiend Beast, Ushani Maru. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Ushani Maru, the card that basically is when it's retired by your Varga, you can give it 10k power, just make it even more aggressive. So these are all preferences that people have and the way that they're playing the deck to accommodate for the meta. And so I think that, you know, Varga can come in and just get a ton of power and just swoop in and all these huge swings, especially early game, and just pummel the opponent. So that all being said, and the addition of being able to run cards like Shenri, things like that to get soul and draw. So I do think Varga, depending on the player and depending on how the deck is built, it can be really competitive. Definitely in the meta, I would say. It's one of the best decks you can play for Vanguard right now. I think it really comes down to the skill and it really comes down to how well you can pilot the deck. It's not one of those pick it up and play and it does its thing on its own. So keep that in mind. Obviously, when you hit triggers of Varga, it just goes crazy. So I will keep that in mind. I'm going to finish up here, I promise. Varga's a really good deck. If you play Varga, practice a lot, you'll win at some point. If you're not hitting triggers, it sometimes is luck, but just keep going with it. I think the deck is really good and you'll start to figure it out too. All right, moving on to number 6. So for number 6, I picked Lyle Odium. So Lyle Odium is still really consistent and the deck hasn't changed. There isn't really any new support for Lyle Odium in Knights of Rebirth. So whatever the deck was already doing before last set, just being able to fill up your gauge using support cards that allow them to call themselves from the gauge, filling up your board, being able to effectively find your distorted Banes, getting them out of the damage zone if you need to, all which leads up to a really well-timed divine skill where you get another turn, skipping your ride in main phase, so you go straight into the battle phase, but eliminating your opponent's damage triggers and pushing so that you can, get a ton of power for that turn. I also really love the fact that in the early game, if you effectively put the distorted Banes in your drop zone and just bind them from drop that way, you can have a really early grade 2 push turn. So again, Lyodium I also think is another deck that's kind of skill focused in a way, just kind of knowing how you're going to time things. The cards don't really work on their own or, do their own thing, autopilot style. So another really good deck, very similar to Varga in the way where it comes down to the pilot. So I decided to put Lyodium at number 6. So now we're going to kick off to our top 5. And in the number 5 slot, I put Reziel. So Reziel did get some new support in this set, and we also still don't have a Sergon choice restriction. That's right. As of this video that I am making this, unless Bushiroad suddenly randomly decides in the next day or two to announce a choice restriction, Reziel is still a really good deck. So Sergon being able to filter and look through cards and then Reziel calling them back over and over again still makes the deck really good. On top of that, you have a new grade 2 with it, which is Mythic of Miracles Rufistor. So Rufistor is a pretty dope card. It lets you look at the top 7 cards of your deck to look for a Reziel. I believe it's top 7, might be top 5. I think top 7 is right. So just being able to find more Reziels so that you can put them to soul with Vita's skill to call that third card, very helpful consistency wise. So not only that, it has this really wonky long ability that basically says if it's called by a card ability or called by your Reziel's card ability and it attacks when it's the 5th battle and you have 4 more damage, it gets 10k and then your opponent can't guard with Sentinels. So, but it's worded really weird. It's like, if this is called by Reziel, this gets 5, but if you have 4 damage, it gets 10k. And if you get 10k and it's the 5th battle, they can't use PG. So it's all basically, it's a guard restrictor. So it has guard restrict, and obviously after you get all those drive checks, thanks to Gabwelius and your Reziel Vita, you can just stack crits on Rufistor and then swing, no Sentinels, big numby. So hopefully that can be a way you can steal some games. And obviously again, on place, just look through the top few cards of your deck for a Reziel, sets you up for your Reziel Vita turn. A very nice addition to the deck, on top of the fact that Sergon is still legal. So I do think Reziel deserves the number 5 slot. So next up we have number 4, which is Levidress. So Levidress or Levidress, however you want to call it, is still a really good deck, and I still think is arguably better than Reziel. I'd say they're really close in how tied. I think everyone is going to agree that Levidress is the better deck. I do think that Reziel has a really good matchup against Levidress, so therefore I think they're a little bit tied when it comes to the matchups, but Levidress has a lot more consistency. What I mean by that is that we still don't have the Charmount restriction, which means Charmount is not restricted to 2 in English, so you can still run 3 to 4 Charmount. And Charmount says that you can call itself from the drop zone, and also when it attacks, you can retire another rearguard to give something to give itself power, and then at the end of the battle that it attacked, you can retire it to draw, setting itself up to be called back up again the next turn. But it's also ideal for this like 5 card combo that Levidress likes to set up itself with. It wants a Notigaster, it wants the Fox, it wants the Squirrel, it wants the Charmant, and then like some other 5th card as an attacker, like a Huli to set up the board or something. But you want to have the Squirrel boosting Charmant, and then the Notigaster swings, the Charmant retires the Notigaster, boosted by the Squirrel. You know, the Fox already had swung and gave the Squirrel the ability to back row attack if it wanted to. The Squirrel moves to the other rearguard circle, so now it can attack or boost again. So it's like this weird combo that you kind of work with as you're setting up your Infinity Eye markers. Speaking of Infinity Eye markers, those things are kind of insane. Like they're really cool for interactive gameplay in Vanguard. So just being able to remove a marker while your opponent is attacking you, get an additional 10,000 or reduce it by 10,000 to get an additional draw. That's what I was trying to get at. Or get an additional 10,000 on your own turn. It's like a force marker. So Levy just has consistency down pretty well. Not nearly the level of like Ava or like Granblue consistency and like deck filtering, but I do think that once you see those 5 pieces, you're pretty much good to go because you can kind of keep bringing them back, and you know, access to all of these like Levidress focus cards like Pantherad, I think is what it's called, that, you know, looks for the top 7 for a copy of Levidress so you can use its skill too. So it's got some good consistency. So that all being said, Levidress is a really good deck. It was in my top 3 last video, so it kind of moved down just a bit, but it's still one of the top 5 best decks in Standard, at least in my opinion. All right, so before we jump into the top 3 decks, we're going to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, 50 Cards. So 50 Cards has pretty much everything you need for all your card fighting needs. They have sleeves, deck boxes, play mats, singles. They have nation bundle splits, so if you want to be able to pick up specific cards for your deck to upgrade your deck really easily without having to buy the singles off TCG Player down the road. Get your cards at 50 cards. It's a lot easier. And you also get a 5% discount when you use code Nexus. So save yourself some pennies. Go get yourself your Vanguard supplies from 50 cards and say thank you to me in your review to 50 cards later, because it makes me look good. So that all being said, thank you again to 50 cards for hooking us up with this awesome deal. Just being able to work with you guys and being able to share your website. I think what they do over there is really awesome. Just being able to supply, the community with affordable Bushiroad products, and also just trying to help keep the game alive, man. So that all being said, thanks to 50 cards for helping us out. And let's just jump right back into the top 3. So for the third best deck in Standard, I picked Blangmire Nexus. So I knew the minute that they revealed Blangmire Nexus and his name, I knew he was going to be meta because of Nexus. But in all seriousness, Blangmire got a huge glow up in this set. Just not only does it kind of copy the same gimmicks of like Reziel Vita and Leviatris and Pyro, where it copies the divine skill, blah, blah, blah. The card is wicked cool. So not only do you now have the ability to choose a Blangmire card to bind instead of 4 cards from your soul, so, using less of your soul, you also can call stuff from the bind zone, face down bind zone, to do more attacks. So you have multi-attacking in Blangmire, which is really cool because if you use the divine skill and your opponent can't use sentinels for the turn, it's just so cool. But that all being said, they got some really, really decent support in this set, not just Blangmire Nexus, but also the grade 1 Elaborate Wizard. So Elaborate Lizard allows you to take the cards that are in your soul and put them back into your hand. So, when you're going through your ride chain and you're soul charging the top 3 and you see like 2 PGs or like really, really good key cards that you need for your deck to function, and you're like, wow, I'm not going to see any PGs this game. Elaborate Wizard gets to put them back into your hand. So now you can PG. So everything that I feel like Blangmire players were suffering from in the past, they found resolutions for. So now Blangmire can do the same silly stuff it was doing before by negating abilities and also negating your opponent's ability to perfect guard and just kind of wallop them. You know what I mean? Because the divine skill also gives it a crit. So you can just delete your opponent, return them to 0 in a way. But anyways, I digress. Blangmire is a really, really cool deck now. And I'm not just saying that because he looks like a knight and has a sword now. That is not the reason why I'm saying that. Genuinely, I do think Blangmire is a really, really good deck. And I'm putting it in my top 3. That's just me. Okay? Anyways, we're on to the next 2, which I'm pretty sure most of you guys know where this is going. So for number 2, the second best deck in Standard is, you guessed it, it's Eligleema, the Bat. So this deck is crazy. In my last video, I put it at number 6. I think that was a little bit of an underestimation there on my part, because I think Eligleema is just too high rolly for a lot of people. But in the West, we love high roll, man. We'll gobble that shit up. So anyways, Eligleema is a deck that got nerfed in Japan, but didn't get nerfed here. So again, we have an unnerfed deck in English. We need nerfs, dude. Where are the nerfs, Bushiroad? So Eligleema, get into it. It does this really cool thing where the whole point of the deck is to pull order cards, set order cards out of your deck and put them in your hand. So you have cards like Tectian, which when it's discarded, you look at the top 5 and you add a set order to your hand. Like really good in Orphis back in the day. It's just a good, card that helps you find set orders. You combine that with Savoid, which allows you to discard your Tectins by switching with itself. So it just immediately activates your Tectins, which is crazy good. So you can do it multiple times a turn, depending on how many Tectins you can find. So you have that. You also have the monster set order, which kind of makes your Savoids proc themselves, soul blasting, calling itself to rear, yada, yada, yada. That all said, after you find a bunch of set orders via card effects, you then have the bread and butter of the deck, which is Moflash. Moflash says if your Vanguard is Eligleema, you can retire this unit and reveal 3 or more different set orders from your hand and just put all of them into the order zone. So you just play 5 set orders right away if you want to. Why do you want to play 5 different set orders? Not for the fact that most of them have an on-place draw, on-place make a Shadow Army token, or on-place soul charge, or on-place look at the top 5 and call something to build a board. Not just that, not just the immediate benefits of building a board and drawing cards. It's for the fact that Elegima itself has this really awesome ability where it restands itself if you trash 3 or more or 5 or more different set orders. So if you trash 3 or more set orders after it attacks, you can restand a rear guard. If you trash 5 or more different set orders, you can restand your Vanguard, and it gets 10k and drive -2. And then all the cards go back into your deck that you trash. So it's not like they sit in the drop zone and then you're done. They go back into the deck so that the next turn you can kind of do it again and search for all of them and get them all back. I understand it's still like, oh, so you don't deck thin and get too many triggers. No, it's kind of insane. So if you're crazy enough, you could actually get 10 set orders into your order zone and do the effect twice. Meaning you can attack with your Vanguard twice, attack with the rear guard twice, or 3 times total basically. And the rear guard of choice that you're going to pick every single time is Jumbo Squisher. So Jumbo Squisher says when it attacks, if you have an Elegima Vanguard, you Counterblast 1, Energy Blast 3, draw a card. This is also after, you have 3 or more set orders in your order zone, but it's not like it's not impossible. It gets 10k, and if your order zone has 5 or more different set orders, it gets a crit until the end of the turn, which means that the minute Squisher first swings, it's going to have a crit, and it's going to keep that crit for the rest of the turn. If you restand it, keeps the crit. If you restand it twice, still keeps that crit. Elegima is a crazy, wild, high rolly aggro deck, and I love it. I love how crazy it goes. People don't love how crazy this goes because it's unfair. I like watching decks be unfair. I don't like playing against unfair decks, but I do think it's really silly. Does MoFlash need to be hit in English? 100%, absolutely it does. Do I personally care and do I like watching people do crazy nutty stuff in Vanguard? I don't personally care, and I do watch people do crazy nutty stuff in Vanguard. I just think it's fun to watch. My ending thoughts with Elegima is it's obviously a number 2 deck because high roll, tons of attacks, kill your opponent, and win, right? And it also probably has the best matchup against the number 1 deck. The number 1 deck in Standard, you know her, you hate her, Bavzarga Axaya. Nothing's changed, and that's a huge problem. So Bavzarga Axaya was my number 1 slot for the last video. Bavzarga Axaya was released in set 7, and Japan has already given it 2 separate hits. We got, in Japan, Virelord to 1, and also now the second hit was Dragveda and Bavzarga Choice Restriction. Bavzarga is still good in Japan, despite this. Meanwhile, in the English meta in the West, we have no hits to the deck. You can play 4 Virelord, you can play Dragveda, you can absolutely just destroy people with this deck. It's insane. If you didn't watch my previous video, I'll give you a quick summary. The deck just gives you free orders, right? The arms, you just arm for free all the time. The arm cards either give you hand, retire stuff, or give your Vanguard triple drive. That's insane. Not triple drive the keyword, but like drive +1. Virelord, when it boosts, your front row gets 10k. So if you have 3 of those, it's plus 30k to your front row. Axaya gets a crit when you Soul Blast 2, which is really easy to maintain because Virelord puts stuff into the soul. Bavzarga Axaya herself has an ability to put a card from hand to soul to arm herself. She still calls grade 1 or less cards from the drop, but you can choose to overdress Virelord on top of Trick Moon from the drop zone directly. So you can overdress from the drop zone, which means all the Virelords that you like reuse and recycle just get called back by Bavzarga. So this deck just does everything way too well. And combine all of that with the off chance that you do get a Dragveda over trigger and now you have a 6 drive check swinging Vanguard, which is kind of insane. Not to mention they have a grade 2 that restands itself for a counterblast. So they have multi-attacking too. This deck is just destroying things from the regional scene down to the local scene. People don't want to go to locals and play against Bavzarga, and people don't want to go to locals and play the Bavs mirror. Surprisingly, when I went to locals and played Bavs, I didn't play against a single Bavs player, which is kind of a shocker, but I think that was literally because the locals were just kind of tired of it. They were just like, dude, I don't want to see Bavzarga anymore. So I was the asshole playing Bavzarga that day. Sue me for building the deck after not going to locals for a month. But that being said, I understood what I was bringing to the table. It wasn't fun. Did I win? No, I still didn't win because I haven't played Vanguard in over a month. I was busy. That all's to say, the deck is crazy broken. I suck at this game, so I'm not able to speak volumes on why I couldn't perform well with the deck. But a lot of people were playing really fucking smart against me. Damage denial, trying to get me to deck myself out from all the hand I was drawing, just like waiting until like I ran out of specific resources and specific key cards. Like they were like, okay, the minute that like 3 of your restanders are in your drop zone, that I know I'm good because you're not going to swarm me with both of them. And in one of the games, I just had really bad luck. All 3 of my Viralords are at the bottom of my deck every single time. I only saw 1 Viralord the whole game or the whole tournament, basically. So I was basically playing nerfed Babzarga unintentionally. But anyways, the deck is crazy good. In Springfest, I played against it 4 times in a row. Absolutely hated the experience. And everyone I played against was like, yeah, this deck is broken. This is also a PSA to say that if people are playing competitively viable decks in a tournament scene, that's just the smart thing to do. And I think the competitive players are aware when decks are broken and they immediately play with the deck, they win, they go back home and they make a video and they say, please ban this. Or they literally, in like talking to the staff around, they're like, yeah, by the way, ban this. And the staff is like, yeah, we know. So Bushy, we're looking forward to the English restriction lists that should be coming soon, even though you haven't announced anything. I really hope that you include the Drag Veda choice restriction in this. Maybe something more, maybe something Japan doesn't have. The Viralord to 1 is a must. The Drag Veda is also a must in my opinion. Going back to Elaglima real quick, because that also had Moflash to 1. Yeah, I can see it, but you know what? Let's start with Saragon, let's start with Sharma, let's start with Viralord. Just get it rolling, kind of see where it goes from there. But other than that, Bazarga's crazy good. It's the best deck in the format, and it's like an issue. That pretty much wraps everything up for my top 10 best decks in Standard for the DZ-BT08 meta. Thank you guys so much for sticking around and watching me rant about Shiny Cardboard. If you are interested in more competitive content or more top 10 lists, be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think of the video. It really helps with not just engagement in regards to a statistic. It really helps me with my engagement with you guys and understanding what you're looking for, what your interests are, and how I can better serve your needs as a creator. So that all is to say, thank you again for watching the video. I really hope you guys got something out of this if you haven't already, to get a better understanding of the meta. If there's anything I missed or if there's anything that might have been incorrect or, uninformed, let me know too. It's all a learning experience for me as well. And that's pretty much it. So thank you all for watching. My name is Richard, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.